There is a moment most people never forget. The moment they realize the person they trusted most was never on their side. And the worst part, it is never a surprise. Not really. Looking back, the signs were always there. The gestures, the patterns, the small inconsistencies that the mind registered and the heart refused to believe. You told yourself you were being paranoid. You told yourself you were overthinking it. You gave them the benefit of the doubt, again and again, until the doubt became certainty and the certainty became damage. Niccolo Machiavelli did not have the luxury of optimism. He studied power in its rawest form, the courts of Renaissance Italy, where alliances shifted overnight, where a man could be your closest advisor at noon and your executioner by evening. He watched betrayals unfold with surgical precision, and what he discovered was not cynical, it was clarifying. People are not random. Their behavior follows patterns, and those patterns, if you learn to read them, will tell you everything you need to know before a single knife enters your back. This video is not for everyone. Most people prefer the comfortable illusion, the belief that others are fundamentally good, that trust is the default, that betrayal is the exception. If that is where you are, this will be difficult to hear. But if you have been burned before, if you carry the specific weight of someone who gave loyalty and received calculation in return, then what follows will feel less like a lesson and more like a confirmation of something you already suspected but never had the language to name. Machiavelli wrote that men in general judge more by their eyes than by their hands. They see what you appear to be. They rarely experience what you truly are. This asymmetry between appearance and reality is the foundation of every betrayal you have ever experienced. The person who deceived you did not hide their nature entirely. They performed a version of themselves designed to lower your guard, and somewhere underneath your trust, your intuition was watching, cataloging, filing away the inconsistencies. You just did not know how to interpret them yet. Today, we decode 3 specific behavioral patterns that Machiavelli identified as signals, not of a bad day, not of a personality flaw, but of a person whose architecture makes them fundamentally unreliable. A person who, when the conditions change, when the stakes shift, when their own interests demand it, will not choose you. These are not moral judgments, they are structural observations. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. The first pattern is the most seductive because it feels like love. It is flattery, not casual compliments. Everyone compliments. What Machiavelli specifically warned against was a particular kind of person who praises you generously, publicly, and consistently, while in private, in the rooms you are not in, the story they tell about you is entirely different. Machiavelli devoted an entire chapter of The Prince to flatterers, which tells you how seriously he took the threat. He wrote that courts are full of them because men are so pleased with their own opinions that it is difficult for them to defend themselves from this plague. Notice the word he chose, plague, not nuisance, plague, because flattery, when believed, disables the very instrument you need to protect yourself, your critical perception. Here's how to recognize the architecture of the flatterer. In your presence, they are enthusiastic about your ideas, your decisions, your character. They agree with a frequency that should be statistically impossible. When you speak, they lean in. When you succeed, no one celebrates louder. But pay attention to what happens when you are not the most powerful person in the room. Watch how they position themselves when you face criticism. Watch whether they add to that criticism quietly, in a way that cannot be traced back to them. Watch whether their celebration of you is proportional to your current status, rising when you rise, cooling when you struggle. The flatterer is not your enemy. They are something more dangerous, a person without a fixed position. Their loyalty is not to you, it is to the version of you that is currently useful to them. Carl Jung described a similar dynamic when he wrote about the persona, the mask we wear in social interaction. The flatterer has elevated the persona to an art form. They have no inner life that you are allowed to access. What you receive from them is always a performance calibrated to extract something from you: your trust, your resources, your protection, your proximity to power. The specific tell, the one Machiavelli would have you memorize, is this: find out what they say about you when speaking to someone you both know. Not directly, you will never get the truth directly, but observe the third party's behavior toward you after those conversations. Do they seem slightly colder? Do they treat you with a new, subtle reservation? That coolness is the residue of what the flatterer has deposited when you weren't listening. Machiavelli's prescription was radical. Surround yourself with people who are allowed to tell you the truth and punish them for flattery rather than honesty. In your personal life, this translates to a simple principle: trust the person who risks your disapproval to tell you something you need to hear, far more than you trust the person who has never once disagreed with you. The absence of friction in a relationship is not peace, it is performance. Now we reach the second pattern, and this one is quieter. It does not announce itself with charm or warmth. It reveals itself only under pressure, in the moments when things go wrong. It is the person who never, under any circumstances, accepts responsibility for their own failures. Machiavelli studied weak princes with the same intensity he studied great ones, because understanding failure was inseparable from understanding success. And what he noticed about the leaders who lost their states, their allies, and eventually their lives was a consistent structural flaw. They attributed every misfortune to fortune, to external forces, to fate, to the betrayal of others, and claimed every success as their own genius. This was not merely pride, it was a fundamental inability to process reality accurately. In everyday life, you know this person. You may work with them. You may be related to them. They are easy to miss at first because their explanations are always plausible. The project failed because the team was not aligned. The relationship ended because they were not understood. The opportunity collapsed because someone else did not deliver. There is always a reason, and the reason is always located outside of themselves. Over time, if you pay attention, you will notice that they are the only constant variable in every story of failure they tell, and yet they are never the cause. Machiavelli would tell you that this pattern is not simply annoying, it is a warning about what this person will do when the pressure reaches a critical point, and someone must be sacrificed to protect the narrative. They have already demonstrated through years of smaller moments that they are incapable of absorbing responsibility. When the stakes are low, they deflect blame onto circumstances. When the stakes are high, when careers are at risk, when reputations hang in the balance, when the survival instinct activates, they will deflect blame onto you. This is not cruelty on their part, it is consistency. They will do to you precisely what they have always done in every situation where accountability was required. They will find a version of events in which they are not at fault, and they will find it quickly because they have been practicing their whole lives. The philosopher Viktor Frankl observed that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom and our growth. The person who never takes responsibility has collapsed that space entirely. They react to failure like a reflex, instantly and without reflection, reaching for the nearest available cause that is not themselves. They are not free, and because they are not free, they cannot be trusted, not because they are evil, but because under real pressure, their behavior cannot be predicted or relied upon. They are at the mercy of their own defensiveness. Ask yourself right now, is there someone in your life whose stories of failure always follow this pattern? A person around whom accountability seems to evaporate. Because if you were building anything, a business, a team, a partnership, a life, and this person is close to the center of it, you are building on a foundation that will fracture the moment real weight is applied. Pause here and reflect. Of the two patterns we have examined so far, the flatterer and the non-accountable, which one have you encountered most recently? Write it in the comments. Your answer will tell you something important, not just about others, but but about which vulnerability in you is most frequently targeted. The third pattern is the most sophisticated. It requires time to observe and patience to confirm, but once you see it clearly, it is impossible to miss and impossible to forgive yourself for having missed it. It is the person whose loyalty is governed entirely by advantage. Machiavelli called these people mercenary in spirit. He wrote about mercenary armies, soldiers who fight for pay rather than for belief, and noted that they are dangerous precisely because they appear capable and even committed, right up until the moment their continued loyalty becomes more costly than abandonment. Then they dissolve. They had no loyalty to begin with. They had an arrangement. The person who operates this way in relationships and alliances is not always aware of it. Some are deliberately calculating. Many are simply shaped by a worldview in which every connection is fundamentally transactional, a worldview they have never examined because it has always worked for them. What they offer you is not loyalty, it is alignment, and alignment lasts only as long as the interests align. Here is how to identify them before the pivot comes. Watch how they speak about people they have left behind. When an old friend, a former employer, a past partner comes up in conversation, how do they frame the ending? Is there any acknowledgement of what that person gave them, any complexity, any genuine reflection, or is the story clean? The other person was flawed, the relationship was a mistake, they are better off without them. The person who can retroactively erase the value of every relationship they have exited is practicing the same cognitive skill they will use to erase you. They are rehearsing. Watch also for how they respond when your value to them temporarily decreases. When you are between opportunities, between projects, between moments of peak usefulness, does the frequency of contact shift? Does the warmth cool by a degree that is almost imperceptible, but somehow unmistakable? Machiavelli noted that fair-weather friends are not really friends. They are investors who have temporarily chosen your stock. When the market conditions change, they will reallocate without sentiment. Robert Greene, drawing directly from Machiavellian tradition, described this as the danger of depending on someone else's need for you rather than their genuine bond with you. When you are no longer needed, the relationship restructures itself, often overnight, and the person doing the restructuring will frame it in a way that makes them the victim or the pragmatist, never the opportunist. They will tell the story of walking away from you as an act of self-preservation or even growth. They have already decided what the story will be before they have told you it is over. Machiavelli's warning here is precise. Never allow your security, financial, emotional, strategic, social, to rest entirely in the hands of someone whose loyalty has never been tested by a moment where supporting you cost them something. The untested ally is not an ally. They are a hypothesis. Now we reach the final insight, the one that changes everything, the one most people are not willing to hear. Trust is not a feeling. Trust is not the warmth you feel in someone's presence, or the history you share, or the number of good times that accumulate into what you call closeness. These things are real and they matter, but they are not trust. They are familiarity, and familiarity is the disguise that trust most often wears. Machiavelli understood that most people confuse the two because the confusion is comfortable. It allows you to feel safe without doing the uncomfortable work of actually assessing whether safety is warranted. Real trust, the kind that holds under pressure, that does not dissolve when the stakes change, that does not evaporate when loyalty becomes expensive, is not given, it is earned. And it is earned through one process only: observation over time, through varied conditions, including conditions of genuine difficulty. Most people you trust have never been tested. Think about that carefully. You have never seen them in a moment where choosing you cost them something meaningful. You have never watched them absorb a consequence for your sake. You have never witnessed what they do when the architecture of the relationship shifts and walking away would be easier than staying. You are trusting a hypothesis, You are trusting who they seem to be in the absence of real pressure. This is not a reason for cynicism, it is a reason for precision. Machiavelli did not distrust everyone, he distinguished. He kept close those who had demonstrated through action, not through words, not through warmth, not through history, that their behavior held consistent under the conditions that actually matter. The rest he managed strategically from a distance, with civility but without exposure. The deepest paradox of this entire framework is this: the person who trusts blindly will always be betrayed eventually, because they are selecting for performance rather than character. But the person who trusts no one will also be destroyed, slowly, by isolation, by the attrition of carrying everything alone. The answer is neither open trust nor closed walls. The answer is selective trust, earned slowly, tested quietly, and extended incrementally to those who pass, not the easy moments, but the hard ones. Ask yourself this as we close: who in your life has chosen you when choosing you was costly? Who has told you a truth that risked your disapproval? Who has stayed in the complexity of your life rather than departing when a simpler, more comfortable option appeared? Those are not many people. For most of us, they are very few, perhaps one, perhaps none yet. That is not a tragedy. That is the condition of anyone who is paying attention. Machiavelli did not warn us about people out of contempt for humanity. He warned us because he understood that clarity about human nature is a form of respect for others and for yourself. When you see someone accurately, you stop demanding that they be something they are not. You stop being angry at the flatterer for flattering, at the non-accountable for deflecting, at the opportunist for pivoting. You simply stop giving them access to the parts of your life that require something they are constitutionally unable to provide. You are not building walls, you are building standards. And the higher your standards for trust, the rarer and more genuine the trust you eventually receive. Most people watching this will feel the recognition, nod at the screen, and tomorrow return to the same relationships with the same unexamined assumptions. That is fine. That is what most people do. But some of you, the ones still here, still listening, will take one name, one relationship, one pattern, and look at it with the cold, honest precision this conversation has been building toward. And that look will change something, quietly, structurally, permanently. The room is not always full of enemies, but it is almost never full of allies. Learn the difference. The price of not learning it is one you have already paid once. You do not have to pay it again.